Maya Torres clocked out at 6:14 a.m., her thumb pressed against the biometric scanner mounted beside the service elevator. The screen flashed green, logging her departure from Tech Hub campus with the same indifferent efficiency it had recorded her arrival 10 hours earlier. She pushed her cleaning cart toward the storage closet, the left wheel squeaking against the polished concrete floor, a sound she'd been meaning to fix for weeks but somehow never did. The squeak had become part of her routine, a tiny imperfection in an otherwise immaculate building. The campus stretched across 12 acres of prime Silicon Valley real estate, all glass and steel and architectural ambition. At this hour, with dawn breaking through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the place looked like a cathedral built to worship innovation. Maya had cleaned every inch of it. She knew which conference rooms the founders preferred for all-night coding sessions, which bathroom stalls had the broken locks, which corners accumulated the most dust despite the building's state-of-the-art air filtration system. She found Jenny Cow slumped over her laptop in conference room C, exactly where Maya had left her 3 hours ago. The young woman's dark hair had escaped its ponytail, and empty energy drink cans formed a small aluminum forest around her keyboard. The screen's blue light carved shadows under her eyes. "Still here," Maya said, not a question. Jenny's head snapped up. "Maya. God. What time is it? Time to go home." Maya entered the room, her cart forgotten in the hallway. She'd learned years ago that the best conversations happened in these liminal hours, when exhaustion stripped away pretense and people said what they actually meant, "Can't." Jenny gestured at her screen with the manic energy of someone who'd consumed too much caffeine and too little sleep. "Investor meeting at 9. My retention numbers are garbage and I don't know how to fix them." Maya moved closer, glancing at the pitch deck displayed on the laptop. Charts and graphs, all trending in the wrong direction. She'd seen hundreds of these presentations. Most of them lied in interesting ways. This one had the virtue of honesty, which was probably why Jenny looked so terrified. "Show me your onboarding flow," Maya said. "What? Your onboarding?" "The first 15 minutes after someone downloads your app." "Show me." Jenny's fingers moved across the trackpad, pulling up a different window. Maya watched, her eyes tracking the user journey with the same attention she brought to cleaning, methodical, detail-oriented, looking for what didn't belong. "You're asking for too much too soon," Maya said after a moment. "Email, phone number, payment method, location permissions, notification settings. That's 5 decisions before they've seen any value. By the time they get to the actual app, they're already exhausted." Jenny stared at the screen, then at Maya, then back at the screen. You're right. Jesus. That's exactly right. Start with one question. Their name. That's it. Show them the value first. Ask for everything else after they're already in love. Maya straightened, aware she'd said too much. She always did this, got too invested. "But what do I know? I clean toilets." "You should be a consultant," Jenny said, not for the first time. Maya smiled, pushing her cart back into the hallway. "I like what I do." The lie came easily now. The truth was more complicated. She did like her work, genuinely. But she also liked the access it gave her, the invisibility. Nobody noticed the janitor. Nobody guarded their conversations or hid their screens when she emptied the trash. She'd built an $8 million portfolio from what people threw away, not literally, though she'd found her share of interesting things in the garbage, but metaphorically. Discarded ideas. Abandoned pitches. Founders who'd been rejected by everyone else. She rode the service elevator down to the basement level, stored her cart in the supply closet with the kind of precision that would have made her father proud. Everything in its place. The mop heads hung on their designated hooks. The cleaning solutions arranged by frequency of use. She'd learned organization from him, back when he'd worked as a maintenance supervisor at the hospital. Before the cancer. Before the medical bills that had consumed his savings and forced him to cash out his retirement early, leaving Maya with $200,000 and a father-sized hole in her life, the Torres family had invested their inheritance in real estate, following Aunt Carmen's advice. Safe. Predictable. Boring. Maya had taken hers and backed a 24-year-old kid named Chris who'd built a food delivery app that nobody believed in. $50,000, the first check she'd ever written that made her hands shake. 2 years later, that app sold for $80 million. Her $50,000 had become $12 million. She'd kept cleaning toilets. Her Honda Civic sat in the employee lot, surrounded by Teslas and BMWs. The car was older than some of the interns, its odometer showing 183,247 miles. She'd bought it used 9 years ago for $4,000. It ran perfectly because she maintained it obsessively, the way her father had taught her to maintain everything. Oil changes every 5,000 miles. Tire rotations. Transmission fluid. The mechanics at the shop on El Camino knew her by name and always tried to upsell her on a newer vehicle. She always declined. The drive home took 20 minutes. Winding through streets where tech wealth had transformed every storefront into something artisanal or organic or disrupted. She passed coffee shops that charged $8 for a latte and didn't carry anything as pedestrian as Folgers. She passed boutiques where a simple t-shirt cost more than her monthly rent. She passed people jogging in athletic where that cost more than her car, their wrists tracking steps and heart rate and sleep quality and probably their existential dread. Her studio apartment occupied the second floor of a 3-story building in Mountain View, wedged between a Vietnamese restaurant and a laundromat. The rent was obscene by any rational standard, but cheap by local metrics. She could afford better. Could afford a house, actually, if she liquidated some holdings. But she liked her studio. Liked the smell of faux drifting through her windows. Liked the sound of the laundromat's dryers creating white noise at night. Liked that nobody here knew or cared who she was. Inside, she made instant coffee, Folgers, because some habits ran too deep to break, and opened her laptop at the small dining table that also served as her desk. Her investment portfolio loaded on the screen, numbers updating in real time as Asian markets closed and European markets opened. $8.3 million, spread across 37 different holdings. 11 companies she'd backed directly. 26 secondary positions she'd acquired through her partnership with Daniel's firm, though the family didn't know about that part yet. She pulled up her message thread with Daniel Chen. 3 unread texts, all sent in the last hour. You awake? Stupid question. You're always awake. Call me when you see this. She smiled, feeling that flutter in her chest that still surprised her after 8 months. The feeling that had made her almost not call him back after their first date, because she'd recognized it for what it was, dangerous. She'd spent 28 years building walls, and Daniel had walked through them like they were made of smoke. Her phone rang before she could decide whether to call or text. You're up, Daniel said by way of greeting. You're up, she countered, couldn't sleep. Kept thinking about the reunion. Maya took a sip of her terrible coffee. Having second thoughts, about meeting your family? Terrified. About us? Never. His voice had that quality she loved, warm and steady even when he was stressed. Are you sure about this? We could skip it. Tell them I got food poisoning. You hate lying. I'd make an exception for you. She pulled her knees up to her chest, balancing the phone between her ear and shoulder. Through her window, the city was waking up. Delivery trucks. Early commuters. A world that ran on coffee and ambition and the desperate hope that this would be the day something changed. I want you to meet them, she said. I want them to meet you. The real you, the guy who wears thrift store jeans and rides a motorcycle that predates the iPhone, the guy who sat on a curb with me and ate $3 tacos and never once checked his phone. Silence on the line, the kind that felt full rather than empty. I love you, Daniel said, and it still hit her like a punch every time, those 3 words that he said easily and she struggled with. I know, she managed, very Han Solo of you. Go to sleep. You have that meeting with the Nakamoto founders at 10, and you have, what, no sleep at all? Then back to work tonight? I'll nap. She probably wouldn't. Daniel, yeah, thank you for agreeing to this. I know family things aren't your, Maya. He cut her off gently. You're my family now. Everything else is just details. After they hung up, she sat with her coffee and her laptop and the weight of what tomorrow would bring. The Torres family summer reunion. An annual tradition that had felt less like a celebration and more like a performance review for as long as she could remember. Aunt Carmen presiding over the gathering like a benevolent dictator, taking inventory of everyone's accomplishments. Uncle Roberto and Aunt Lucia orbiting around her, successful but deferential. Cousin David bragging about his latest commercial real estate deal. And Isabella, her Instagram perfect life polished to a shine that hurt to look at directly. Then there was Maya. The family disappointment. The one who'd wasted her potential on a job that anyone could do, who drove a car that should have died years ago, who dressed like she shopped exclusively at Target, because she did, they had no idea. None of them. Her phone buzzed with an Instagram notification. She'd muted most of her family, but Isabella's post still broke through somehow, algorithmically determined to remind Maya of what her life could look like if she just tried harder. The photo showed Isabella and Marcus on the deck of someone's yacht, glasses of champagne raised toward a sunset that looked photoshopped in its perfection. The caption read, "Family reunion this weekend. Can't wait to see everyone. Even my sweet cousin Maya who keeps it so real face with tears of joy red heart #family first #blessed." Maya stared at the laughing emoji. The heart that felt more like a target. The hashtags that Isabella deployed like weapons. She'd seen this before, this particular brand of cruelty dressed up as affection. The public performance of family love that made any complaint seem petty. She closed Instagram without liking or commenting, the way she always did. Let Isabella think she didn't see it. Let her think Maya was too busy or too oblivious or too beneath social media to engage. Better that than starting a fight that would make tomorrow even more unbearable, but her hands shook as she set down her phone. Anger, she realized. Pure and clean and righteous. After years of enduring the subtle mockery, the pitying looks, the passive-aggressive comments wrapped in concern, something in her had finally reached its limit. She pulled up her email and drafted a message to her accountant. Need updated portfolio valuation by end of day Sunday. Include breakdown by company, with founding dates and current status. Also pulled a Forbes article from March, you know the one. She didn't explain why. Didn't need to. She paid him enough that he wouldn't ask questions. Her father used to say that the best revenge was success, but he'd been wrong about that. Success was fine, but invisible success was pointless. What good was building an empire if everyone still thought you were poor? What good was proving them wrong if you never actually proved it? Tomorrow, she decided. Tomorrow she would let them see, but first, she needed sleep. She closed her laptop and moved to her bed, a queen-size mattress on a simple frame that Daniel always complained was too firm. She liked it firm. Liked waking up without back pain after 10 hours of pushing a cleaning cart. Liked that her choices were based on function rather than fashion. She set her alarm for 2 p.m., giving herself 8 hours. It wouldn't be enough, but it never was. The life she'd built required sacrifice, and sleep was the easiest thing to give up. Except sleep wouldn't come. She lay in her bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Daniel's voice on the phone. The way he'd said "I love you" like it was the simplest truth in the world. The way he'd offered to fake food poisoning to spare her the reunion. The way he'd called her family his family, casually erasing the distinction between what was hers and what was theirs. She'd met him 8 months ago, in the same building where she'd just left Jenny. He'd been having a panic attack at 1 a.m, sitting on the floor outside conference room B with his head between his knees. Maya had found him while making her rounds, this man in an expensive suit who looked like he was dying. "You okay?" she'd asked, which was a stupid question. He obviously wasn't okay. "No," he'd said, and she'd appreciated the honesty. "I'm about to make a $30 million mistake and I don't know how to stop myself." She'd sat down beside him, her cleaning cart forgotten in the hallway. "Tell me about it." So he had. Told her about the founder he was about to back, the revolutionary AI platform that promised to change everything. Told her about the pressure from his partners to close the deal. Told her about the nagging feeling that something was wrong but he couldn't identify what. How does he treat people? Maya had asked. What? The founder. How does he treat the people who work for him? His assistant. The interns. The janitors. Daniel had gone very still. I don't know, find out, she'd said. Character predicts success better than code. He'd looked at her then, really looked at her, the way people rarely did when she was in uniform. You're right. That's exactly what's bothering me. He's brilliant, but he's a nightmare to everyone who can't do something for him. Then don't give him $30 million. It's not that simple. It actually is. He'd laughed, surprised into it. You sound very sure. I clean toilets for a living. We see a lot of shit. Literally and metaphorically. Another laugh, genuine this time. I'm Daniel. Maya, can I buy you coffee? Maya, I'm working. After work. She'd hesitated, already knowing this was a mistake. Already feeling that pull toward him that meant danger. But she'd said yes anyway, the way she always did when something scared her. Leaned into the fear instead of away from it. He'd taken her to the taco truck on El Camino at 7 in the morning, both of them exhausted and wired on adrenaline and the strange intimacy of having met at the worst possible moment. They'd sat on a curb, eating carne asada and talking about everything except what they did for a living. He never checked his phone. Never once made her feel like she was keeping him from something more important. On their third date, he'd told her what he did. Senior partner at Elevation Ventures, youngest in the firm's history, managing a portfolio worth more than Maya's entire neighborhood. She'd waited for him to ask about her work, but he never did. Just assumed she was what she appeared to be, a janitor who gave good advice and made him laugh and kissed like she meant it. She'd told him the truth a month in, unable to keep pretending. Expecting everything to change. But he'd just smiled and said, I know. I figured it out the second week. You asked too many smart questions about cap tables. Why didn't you say anything? I was waiting for you to trust me. Now here they were, 8 months later, about to walk into her family reunion together. Daniel with his venture capital empire and his thrift store aesthetic. Maya with her $8 million and her janitor's uniform. Both of them pretending to be less than they were, for different reasons. Her phone buzzed again. Another text from Daniel, stop overthinking. Get some sleep. I'll pick you up at 4, she smiled at the screen. Sent back a simple heart emoji, because sometimes that was easier than words. Finally, as morning light crept across her floor, she fell asleep. Dreamed of conference rooms and trash cans and her father's voice saying the thing he'd always said when she doubted herself, people see what they expect to see, Mija. Use that. Tomorrow, she would use it. Tomorrow, the Torres family would see exactly what they expected, right up until the moment they didn't. The valet's neural implant flickered blue as he processed Maya's Honda Civic, his expression cycling through confusion, mild disgust, and finally professional neutrality. The car's combustion engine, actual gasoline, not even hybrid, marked her as either aggressively retro or genuinely poor. In Los Altos Hills, those categories weren't mutually exclusive, but they were both embarrassing. You can park it yourself, he said, gesturing toward the overflow lot behind Aunt Carmen's estate. His voice carried the particular apologetic tone reserved for delivering bad news to people who couldn't tip well. Around back, Maya didn't argue. She'd expected this. The circular driveway hosted a showcase of automotive achievement, 3 Teslas with their distinctive smooth profiles and self-driving sensors, a Range Rover that probably cost more than her annual cleaning salary, a Porsche Cayenne in that specific shade of silver that screamed newly minted tech wealth, and Marcus's leased Maserati, its paint job so glossy it looked wet. Her Civic, with its 183,247 miles and manual transmission, belonged in a museum or a junkyard, depending on your perspective. She parked between a recycling bin and someone's deactivated lawn maintenance drone, killed the engine, and sat for a moment in the sudden silence. Through the windshield, she could see the estate sprawling across 2 acres of manicured hillside. Smart glass windows adjusted their tint automatically as the sun moved. Solar roof tiles generated enough power to run the house and sell surplus back to the grid. The infinity pool's edge seemed to pour directly into the valley below, a trick of engineering that had probably cost 6 figures. Her phone vibrated. Daniel, texting from wherever he'd stopped to compose himself, 5 minutes out. You okay? She typed back, define okay. Still want to do this, too late now, never too late. I can turn around. We can go get tacos and pretend this never happened. She smiled at the screen, feeling that dangerous flutter again. 8 months and he still offered her escape routes, still gave her permission to choose herself. It made her want to choose him instead. See you in 5, she sent, then added, try not to terrify them, no promises. She climbed out of the Civic, smoothing down her dress. Target, last season, $29 on clearance. It fit well and she'd paired it with simple sandals that showed off the pedicure she'd given herself last night while watching a documentary about venture capital fraud. The irony hadn't been lost on her. The front door opened before she reached it, which meant the house's facial recognition software had already logged her arrival and alerted Aunt Carmen. Smart homes were convenient that way. Also invasive, but nobody seemed to care about privacy when convenience was involved. Isabella materialized in the doorway, phone already raised, already recording. Her smile was performative, the kind that looked genuine in photos but felt like a threat in person. She'd had work done since last year's reunion, subtle, expensive work that made her look perpetually 28 instead of 32. Her dress probably cost 4 figures and her jewelry definitely did. The neural implant at her temple glowed faintly pink, processing something, probably running a filter on the video she was capturing, adding text overlays, calculating optimal posting time for maximum engagement. Oh my God, Maya. Isabella's voice carried that particular pitch that meant the performance had begun. You came. And you're so, look at you. So natural, natural. The word landed like a slap disguised as a compliment. Maya had learned to decode Isabella's vocabulary years ago. Natural meant poor. Simple meant pathetic. Authentic meant unmarketable. Good to see you, Bella, Maya said, climbing the steps, and you brought someone. Isabella's eyes had already moved past Maya, tracking the sound of a motorcycle engine approaching. Oh wow, is that did you ride here on a? Daniel's Kawasaki Ninja rounded the circular driveway, its engine purring with the particular satisfaction of a machine that had been maintained obsessively despite its age. He pulled up beside the Maserati, killed the engine, and removed his helmet in one smooth motion that made Isabella's recording hand waver slightly. He looked like trouble. Dark jeans that fit him in a way that suggested they'd been tailored despite their thrift store origin. Boots that had seen actual use. A plain gray Henley that stretched across his shoulders and chest in a manner that made Maya remember, with visceral clarity, what he looked like without it. His hair was messy from the helmet, his jaw shadowed with deliberate scruff, and his eyes found Maya immediately, ignoring everyone else. Hey, he said, walking toward her with the loose-hipped confidence of someone who knew exactly what he was worth and didn't need to prove it. Hey yourself, Maya managed, aware that Isabella was capturing all of this, that the video would be dissected later, that every micro-expression and moment of eye contact would become evidence in the family's ongoing case against her choices. Daniel reached her and without hesitation, without seeking permission, slid one arm around her waist and kissed her temple. The gesture was possessive and tender and completely unself-conscious. She felt herself lean into him before she could stop herself. This is Daniel, Maya said, turning to Isabella. My boyfriend. Isabella practically sang the word, her implant glowing brighter as she processed optimal hashtags. How exciting! How long has this been? And you two met at, where did you say you met? The implication hung in the air like smog. Work. She meant work. She meant cleaning toilets, something like that, Daniel said, extending his free hand. His smile was polite and completely empty. Isabella shook his hand, her own implant reading his biometric data, scanning for social media profiles, net worth indicators, status markers. Maya watched her cousin's expression shift microscopically as the results came back. No public profiles, no flashy indicators, nothing to suggest he was anyone worth knowing. Well, come in. Isabella stepped back, already texting someone, probably Marcus, probably a warning that Maya's boyfriend looked like he'd walked off a movie set for a film about attractive drifters. Everyone's out back. Marcus is dying to meet you, he loves motorcycles. They stepped into the foyer, and Maya felt Daniel's hand tighten slightly on her waist. The interior of Aunt Carmen's house was a monument to algorithmic perfection. Every piece of furniture had been selected by an AI interior designer. Every painting had been chosen to optimize the room's emotional resonance. Even the temperature adjusted based on the collective biometric data of everyone present, keeping the space at precisely 71.3 degrees Fahrenheit for maximum comfort. It felt like being inside a luxury hotel. Beautiful and soulless, Marcus appeared from the living room, drawn by the commotion the way sharks are drawn to blood. He wore white pants and a blue blazer with no tie, the uniform of men who'd read one too many articles about power dressing. His Rolex caught the light, which was probably the point. His own neural implant glowed gold, a premium model, expensive and ostentatious, the mysterious boyfriend. Marcus strode forward. Hand extended. Marcus Caldwell. I'm married to this beautiful creature. He pulled Isabella against him with the casual ownership of someone displaying a possession. Nice bike, man. Vintage. I had one of those in college before I upgraded. What year is that, 2010? 2012, Daniel confirmed, shaking Marcus's hand with exactly the right amount of pressure, not aggressive, not submissive, just present, classic. I respect a man who appreciates the oldies. Of course, these days I'm more about 4 wheels than 2, you saw the Maserati out front? Marcus didn't wait for an answer. Quattroport. V8. 0 to 60 in 4.7 seconds. Handles like a dream. You should take it for a spin later. Oh wait. Stick shift might be tricky if you're not used to performance vehicles. Maya felt Daniel's thumb stroke once across her hip, a micro gesture that said I'm fine, I've got this, but the movement sent heat through her anyway. Maybe later, Daniel said mildly. What do you do, Marcus? Crypto. Emerging markets. NFT portfolios, though that's more of a side thing now. Markets cooled off. Mostly I'm in DeFi infrastructure, building the financial systems of tomorrow. You know how it is. Marcus's implant was processing Daniel's biometric data too, running the same scans Isabella had run. What about you? Maya said you work with startups. I do. Developer? Designer? One of those growth hacker guys? Something like that. Right on, right on. Always good to see people chasing the dream. Bay Area, man, everyone's gotta hustle. Marcus clapped Daniel on the shoulder with the forced camaraderie of someone establishing dominance. Come on, let me get you a drink. You drink beer or are you one of those IPA snobs? They moved through the house toward the back patio, Marcus leading the way while maintaining a running commentary on every expensive decision that had gone into the place. The smart glass. The radiant floor heating. The imported tile. Maya followed, Daniel's hand still on her waist, and tried to calculate how many minutes until the real humiliation began. The back patio was worse. 30 people scattered across multiple conversation clusters, all of them dressed in the careful casual style that cost thousands to achieve. Uncle Roberto and Aunt Lucia stood near the infinity pool, deep in conversation with another couple Maya didn't recognize. Cousin David held court near the outdoor kitchen, gesturing expansively while explaining something to 3 younger relatives who looked appropriately impressed. And Aunt Carmen presided over it all from her position at the head of a long table set for dinner, her own neural implant glowing a dignified silver as she monitored every conversation, every interaction, every potential drama. She saw Maya and her expression did something complicated: pleasure, concern, assessment, calculation, all in the space between one heartbeat and the next. Maya, mi amor. Aunt Carmen rose, arms extended. She was 60 but looked 50, thanks to the same subtle work Isabella had done, the same careful maintenance that money could buy. She wore white linen and turquoise jewelry, her gray hair styled into an elegant bob that probably required a team. Come here, let me look at you. Maya submitted to the embrace, feeling the way Aunt Carmen's hands catalogued her dress, her shoes, her lack of jewelry, her absence of any neural implant. The hug felt like an inspection, and this must be Daniel. Aunt Carmen pulled back, her gaze shifting to assess the new variable. Maya mentioned she was bringing someone. "Welcome to our home, thank you for having me, Mrs. Torres." Daniel's voice had shifted into a formal register, respectful without being obsequious. "Please, call me Carmen. Mrs. Torres makes me sound ancient." She smiled, but her eyes were busy. "Maya tells me you work in technology, venture capital." Actually, Maya felt something shift in the air. Aunt Carmen's implant must have processed that information, because her expression warmed fractionally. "How interesting. We don't know many people in that world, well, except for Maya's connections at that campus where she works. Such fascinating conversations she must hear while she's cleaning those conference rooms." There it was. The first cut. Delivered with a smile and wrapped in false interest, but a cut nonetheless. Daniel's hand tightened on Maya's waist again. "She has incredible insight into founders. Best judgment of character I've ever seen, I'm sure." Aunt Carmen's attention had already moved on, calculating the next move, the next conversation. "Please, get yourselves drinks. Dinner will be ready in an hour. Maya, come help me in the kitchen for a moment. I want to hear all about what you've been up to." It wasn't a request. Maya extracted herself from Daniel's grip, gave him a look that said "survive without me for 5 minutes, and followed Aunt Carmen into the house. The kitchen was chrome and marble and ambient lighting, designed by the same algorithm as the rest of the house. Aunt Carmen moved to the island where vegetables were prepped and waiting, though Maya knew her aunt hadn't actually cut any of them. She had staff for that. "This was theater. He's very handsome," Aunt Carmen said without preamble. "He is, but Maya, what does he do?" "Really? Venture capital is very competitive." "Is he an analyst? An associate?" "He's a partner." Aunt Carmen's hands paused over the vegetables. "A partner? At which firm?" "Elevation Ventures." "I don't know it, they manage about 200 million in assets." Maya kept her voice neutral, knowing her aunt's implant was processing the information, cross-referencing it. Trying to determine if Maya was lying or deluded or somehow telling an improbable truth. "And he rides a motorcycle and wears jeans to family dinners." "He does, Maya." Aunt Carmen set down the knife and turned fully to face her. "Mija, I know you like to be different. You've always been stubborn, like your father. But this is your life. Your future. Happiness doesn't pay for retirement. It doesn't pay for healthcare when you're older. It doesn't." "Tia, I'm happy." "Isn't that enough?" "No." The word came out flat and final. "Not when you could be happy and secure. Not when you have so much potential that you're wasting on cleaning toilets and dating men who show up to family events looking like they just rolled out of bed." Maya felt the familiar anger rising, the same frustration she'd felt every year at these gatherings. The assumption that she needed saving. The conviction that her choices were mistakes. The absolute certainty that they knew better. "I should get back," Maya said, turning toward the door. "Wait." Aunt Carmen caught her wrist. "I'm sorry. I just worry about you. We all do. We want you to be happy, truly. But we also want you to be safe. To be taken care of." "I can take care of myself, I know, mi amor. I know you can." Aunt Carmen released her wrist but held her gaze. "Just promise me you'll think about your future. About what you really want from life." Maya nodded, not trusting herself to speak. And escaped back to the patio. Daniel stood exactly where she'd left him, now surrounded by a small group that included Marcus, David, and 2 younger cousins Maya barely knew. They were all talking at him, their voices overlapping in that particular way men had when they were trying to establish hierarchy. "Real estate is always going to be the safest bet, though crypto has that upside potential, my last commission was almost 6 figures, you've gotta have multiple revenue streams in this economy." Daniel caught her eye over Marcus's shoulder, and something in his expression made her stomach flip. He looked patient and amused and completely unimpressed. Like he was watching children play at business. She moved to his side and he immediately made space for her, his arm finding her waist again with that same natural possessiveness. We were just telling Daniel about real assets versus fake money, David said, grinning. He says he works with startups, which is great, chase that dream, but at the end of the day you can't live in an app, you know. True, Daniel agreed. You definitely can't live in an app, exactly. David seemed thrilled to have his worldview validated. That's what I tell my girlfriend when she wants me to invest in her friends' companies. I'm like, babe, I deal in real assets. Buildings. Land. Things you can touch. Makes sense, Daniel said, his thumb stroking Maya's hip again in that maddening way. So what's your specialty? Marcus jumped in. Series A? Seed funding? Angel investing, mostly Series B and C. Some growth equity. So you're like an analyst? Entry level? No shame in that, man. We all start somewhere. I remember my first internship, making coffee and sitting in on meetings. I'm a partner, Daniel said mildly. Marcus's smile didn't waver but his eyes did something sharp. Partner. Right. Cool. Which fund? Elevation, never heard of it. Is it new? Been around about 15 years, huh? Must be boutique. Small assets under management, around 200 million. The number landed like a stone in still water. David's grin faltered. Marcus's implant flared brighter as it processed whether Daniel was lying. The younger cousins looked confused, trying to calculate whether 200 million was impressive or not. That's great, Marcus said finally. Really great. Good for you. Climbing that ladder. Before Daniel could respond, Aunt Carmen called everyone to the table. Dinner was ready. The seating arrangement was strategic, which meant it was punitive. Maya found herself wedged between Uncle Roberto and Aunt Lucia, while Daniel sat directly across from her, flanked by Marcus and David. Isabella claimed the seat beside Daniel, her phone positioned to capture candid moments. Her implant glowing as she live-streamed portions of the dinner to her followers. The food arrived on smart plates that monitored portion sizes and nutritional content, adjusting each serving to match the diner's biometric data and dietary preferences logged in their implants. Maya, implant-free, got whatever the system defaulted to for unaugmented guests. The wine Marcus poured came with a QR code linking to the vineyard's blockchain provenance chain, proving authenticity and sustainability practices. Uncle Roberto raised his glass. To family. To success. To the next generation building on what we started. Everyone drank. Maya caught Daniel's eye across the table and saw the corner of his mouth twitch. Marcus stood without prompting. And to my beautiful wife Isabella, who just hit 300,000 followers. We're launching our real estate coaching program next month, early bird special for family. He winked, polite applause. Isabella beamed, angling her phone to capture her own expression, and David, Aunt Carmen added, just closed a $4 million commercial deal. Stand up, Mijo, David stood, soaking in the attention. More applause. Aunt Carmen's gaze swept the table and landed on Maya with the precision of a targeting system. And Maya, tell us, how is work? Are you still at that campus? Every conversation stopped. Every eye turned. Maya felt the weight of their attention like pressure on her chest. I am. I love it there, see, Isabella said, her voice honey-sweet. I think that's so beautiful. Not everyone needs to be ambitious. Some people find joy in simple work. Honest work is honest work, Marcus agreed, reaching across the table to slap Daniel's shoulder. Right, buddy? Daniel's jaw tightened but he stayed silent, waiting. Maya, have you thought about going back to school? Aunt Lucia asked gently. You were always so smart. Remember how you used to help your cousins with their homework? I'm happy where I am, of course you are. Isabella's phone was definitely recording now. Not everyone wants the stress of building something, right? I mean, I'm exhausted from my brand deals and property showings. Sometimes I think it would be so nice to just clock in, clock out, go home. No pressure, the table murmured agreement. Maya saw Uncle Roberto shift uncomfortably. Saw Aunt Lucia look away. Saw David grin into his wine glass. So what's your 5-year plan? Marcus asked. You two thinking about kids? Marriage? Daniel, you said you're in venture capital, analyst level? Associate? What's the trajectory there, partner? Daniel said, his voice controlled but harder now. Right. Partner. Marcus laughed. Sure, man. Cool. Isabella seized the moment, her voice rising with performed affection. You know what I love about Maya? She never brags. Some of us can't help but talk about our success, fake humble laugh, but Maya just exists. It's so zen. She paused, looking around the table to make sure everyone was listening. Her implant glowed brighter, processing engagement metrics in real time, calculating viral potential. But seriously, Maya. Isabella leaned forward, her expression shifting into concerned friend mode. What is your 5-year plan? Are you going to keep cleaning, or maybe it's time to invest in yourself? I mean, you're always talking about believing in people. Maybe believe in you for once. I do invest, Maya said quietly. In people I believe in, invest? Isabella's laugh was genuine this time, surprised into it. Like, with what? On a janitor's salary? She looked around the table, gathering witnesses. I'm not being mean, I'm being real. Maybe Daniel can help you set up a retirement fund or something. It's never too late to start. The silence that followed was absolute. Uncle Roberto shifted in his seat. Aunt Carmen looked away. David's grin widened. And Daniel set down his fork with deliberate care. When he looked up, his expression had changed completely. No more patience. No more amusement. Now he looked like exactly what he was, a man who'd built his career on reading people, on knowing when to fold and when to go all in, on understanding that sometimes the most devastating move was the one nobody saw coming. You know what I love about Maya, he said, his voice casual but electric. Everyone turned. Maya's eyes widened because she knew that tone, knew what it meant, knew he was about to do something catastrophic. Daniel, she started. He ignored her, his eyes locked on hers, his voice dropping into intimate territory that made the rest of the table fade away. Her humility. The way she never mentions that she's the smartest person in any room she enters. That's sweet, Isabella began. The way she pretends she doesn't know, Daniel continued, still looking only at Maya, a slow smile forming, that my entire firm has been hunting for an anonymous investor we call the Night Shift Angel for 3 years. The silence changed quality. Became electric. Daniel turned to address the table, but his body language remained focused on Maya, leaning toward her, possessive, protective. An investor who turned $200,000 into $8 million. Who has a 73% success rate. Who backed 11 companies that everyone else passed on, and 9 of them are now worth over $50 million each. What are you talking about? Marcus's laugh sounded uncertain. Daniel finally looked at him, and his smile was lethal. I'm talking about the woman you just mocked for being a janitor. The woman who owns 40% of 3 companies in my portfolio. The woman whose trash can conversations. He turned back to Maya. Voice going soft and charged. That's what you call them, right, baby? Maya felt her face flush. Daniel, stop, whose trash can conversations have generated more wealth than everyone at this table combined. Isabella's mouth opened and closed. Marcus's face had gone pale. David looked confused. Aunt Carmen's implant was glowing so brightly it was almost white, processing frantically. Daniel stood, extending his hand to Maya, his eyes never leaving hers. Dance with me. There's no music, Maya managed. He pulled her up, his hands finding her waist, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear but intimate enough to feel private. There's always music when I'm with you. And these people need a minute to Google your LLC. He led her toward the garden, and just before they were out of earshot, he called back over his shoulder, oh, and Marcus? She passed on your crypto fund 8 months ago. Took her 5 minutes to see through your numbers. That's why you never got a call back. Marcus's face drained of all color. The annual Tourism Innovation Gala always began the same way, with Aunt Carmen's holographic invitation materializing in Maya's cramped efficiency pod at precisely 8 a.m., 3 weeks before the event. Maya watched the shimmering projection unfold above her fold-down desk, her coffee growing cold in her hands. Her aunt's perfectly filtered face smiled out at her. Skin smoothed to porcelain by the latest beauty algorithm, the family estate's smart glass atrium glittering behind her like a cathedral of success. "Dearest Maya," the recording began, voice dripping with practiced warmth that didn't quite reach the eyes. "We hope you'll join us for this year's gala. It's so important that the whole family is there. We know you're busy with your work." The slight pause before work landed like a paper cut. "But family comes first, doesn't it?" Maya dismissed the hollow with a flick of her wrist, watching it dissolve into pixels. Through her pod's single window, the chrome-and-glass towers of New Seattle's tech district caught the morning sun, each building a monument to someone's billion-dollar exit. She lived in the shadow of those monuments, quite literally. Her residential pod was part of a vertical stack tucked between two corporate headquarters, affordable housing squeezed into the leftover spaces where sunlight barely reached. She pulled on her work uniform, the smart fabric adjusting to her body temperature as she moved. The logo across her chest read "Precision Cleaning Solutions" in letters that seemed to glow faintly in low light. Her AR contacts, the basic public domain version that everyone used, flickered to life as she blinked through her morning routine. Calendar notifications, traffic patterns, air quality index. And sitting at the top of her priority queue, already marked urgent by her family's shared network, a group chat about the gala, Isabella had posted a preview image of her dress 30 seconds ago. It had already accumulated 400 reactions from the extended family network. The gown was a masterpiece of programmable fabric that shifted colors with her movements, each hue calibrated to complement her complexion. The caption read, "Finally a dress worthy of announcing my new partnership with Luxe Brands. Some of us are making moves," David had commented, "looking good, prima. Some people understand the value of presentation, Uncle Roberto, our Isabella, always making the family proud." Maya scrolled past without reacting. She'd learned years ago that silence was safer than engagement in the family's digital arena. Every like, every comment, every reaction fed into their intricate social credit algorithms. The Torres-chens tracked everything, who responded to whom, how quickly, with what enthusiasm. Her aunt maintained a dashboard that color-coded family engagement like a corporate org chart. Her cousin Marcus had sent her a private message 10 minutes ago. She almost didn't open it. "Hey Maya, been working on something big. Want to run it by you before the gala. Coffee?" She stared at the message while finishing her coffee. Marcus only reached out when he wanted something. Last time it had been contact information for one of her wealthy clients, his words. Not hers. He'd assumed she cleaned homes for the tech elite, that she had access to their private spaces, their unguarded moments. She deflected without lying, a skill she'd honed to an art form over the past 3 years. "Busy schedule this week," she typed back. Maybe at the gala. She locked her pod and descended the narrow service stairs. The elevator required a microtransaction she refused to make on principle, and emerged onto the street where delivery drones hummed past at eye level and the sidewalks pulsed with soft guidance lights directing foot traffic. Her neural implant buzzed with turn-by-turn navigation to the tech hub building, though she'd walked this route so many times she could do it blind. The Tech Hub campus sprawled across 6 city blocks, a glittering complex of interconnected towers where the next generation of billionaires worked around the clock. Maya swiped her employee badge at the service entrance and stepped into the labyrinth of corridors that existed behind the scenes of innovation. The cleaning staff had their own network of passages, their own elevators, their own break rooms carefully positioned so they'd never accidentally interrupt a $1 million brainstorming session. She changed in the employee locker room, stowing her personal items in her assigned cube. Her supervisor's instructions waited in her queue: 3rd floor, conference rooms A through F, executive lounge, and the meditation pods. Premium service level, which meant she'd be working alone, after hours, when the spaces were empty. Maya preferred it that way. She started her shift at 6 p.m., just as the last of the day workers were streaming toward the exits. The building's AI adjusted the lighting and climate control for night mode, sensors tracking her movement from room to room. She worked methodically, efficiently, letting her hands follow patterns worn smooth by repetition while her mind wandered. In conference room C, someone had left a tablet on the table. She worked around it, spraying and wiping the smart glass surface that could display anything from financial projections to immersive presentations. The tablet's screen was dark but not locked, sloppy security. She could see the edge of a document, something labeled Series B pitch deck. She didn't touch it. She never touched anything personal, never read anything private. That was the rule that kept her invisible, but she noticed. She always noticed. The meditation pods were her favorite part of the job. They were small, egg-shaped chambers lined with adaptive cushioning and equipped with environmental controls that could simulate everything from a beach at sunset to a forest in spring. People paid $200 an hour to decompress in these pods, and Maya got paid to clean them. She found the irony delicious. She was wiping down the touchscreen interface on Pod 4 when she heard footsteps. Her neural implant helpfully identified the time as 9:47 p.m., well past when anyone should be in this section of the building. She glanced up as a man rounded the corner, stopping short when he saw her. He was tall, dressed in the casual uniform of tech money, expensive jeans, a t-shirt that probably cost more than her week's rent, designer sneakers that incorporated some kind of performance monitoring. His AR glasses were top of the line, the kind with prescription lenses and neural interfaces that cost as much as a used car. He looked exhausted, his dark hair disheveled like he'd been running his hands through it for hours. "Oh," he said, seeming genuinely startled to see another human. "Sorry, I didn't realize anyone was still here. Just finishing up," Maya said, keeping her tone professionally neutral. "I can come back to this area if you need privacy." No, it's fine." He rubbed his face. "I was just looking for somewhere quiet to think." "Bad day?" She nodded, returning to her work. This happened sometimes, stressed executives wandering the building at odd hours, looking for solitude. Usually they ignored her completely, part of the landscape of their privileged misery. But this man lingered, watching her work with an odd expression. "Do you like your job?" he asked suddenly. Maya's hand paused mid-wipe. It was such an unexpected question that she actually looked at him. "That's a complicated question, is it?" He leaned against the wall, and she caught the faint scent of expensive cologne mixed with coffee and stress sweat. "Seems pretty straightforward. You clean things. You either enjoy it or you don't, and you?" she asked, surprising herself with her boldness. "Do you like yours?" He laughed, a sound without humor. "That's an even more complicated question, see?" She smiled slightly, returning to the pod. "Nothing straightforward, fair point." He watched her work for another moment. "I'm Daniel, by the way." "Daniel Park, Maya." She didn't offer her last name. "First names only" was another rule. "Maya," he repeated, like he was tasting the word. "Do you work here every night, usually?" "Why, just wondering." He pushed off from the wall. "I'll let you finish. Thanks for the philosophical moment. It was more helpful than the $500 an hour executive coach my firm made me hire." He walked away. And Maya watched him go, noting the defeat in his shoulders, the way his expensive shoes scuffed against the floor like he'd forgotten how to pick up his feet. Her neural implant automatically filed away the interaction, tagging it with a timestamp and location data that her cleaning supervisor could review if needed. Everything was tracked, everything was recorded, everything became data. She finished the meditation pods and moved to the executive lounge, a space designed to look casual despite costing more to furnish than most people's annual salaries. Modular seating that adjusted to individual body metrics, a coffee bar with beans that cost $400 a pound, walls that could display any image or video feed in the world. She cleaned the coffee bar first, wiping down the industrial espresso machine that required a 3-day certification course to operate. Her phone buzzed, the old-fashioned kind of buzz that meant a call, not a message. She glanced at the screen. Aunt Carmen. At 10:15 p.m. This couldn't be good. She accepted the call with her neural interface, routing it through her bone conduction audio so her supervisor's monitoring system wouldn't pick up her voice. "Hi, Tia, Maya, Mija, I'm so glad I caught you." Her aunt's voice had that particular tone that meant she wanted something. "I need a tiny favor." "It's about the gala." Maya kept cleaning, her hands moving on autopilot. "What about it?" "Well, you know how important this year is. Isabella's partnership with Lux Brands, David's real estate deals, Marcus has something very exciting in the works. It's really a showcase of what our family has achieved, and we want to make sure everyone looks their best. I know your work situation is what it is, and I don't want you to feel uncomfortable or out of place." There it was. The gentle knife between the ribs, delivered with maternal concern. "I'm not uncomfortable," Maya said carefully. Of course not, of course not. But you know how these things are. First impressions matter so much in our world. So I've arranged for you to borrow a dress from Isabella. She has so many, and you two are similar sizes, though of course she's a bit taller. I have a dress, Tia." A pause. "You do?" "I do." "Oh." The disappointment was palpable. "Well, that's wonderful, Mija. I'm sure it's lovely. What brand is it?" Maya smiled at the smart glass windows that lined the lounge, seeing her reflection superimposed over the glittering city. "It's a surprise, a surprise." "How fun." Aunt Carmen's tone suggested it was anything but. "Well, I'm looking forward to seeing it. And Maya, I hope you know this comes from a place of love. We just want you to feel like you belong." "I know, Tia. Thank you for thinking of me." She ended the call and stood for a moment, letting the anger wash through her without showing on her face. The building's sensors were always watching, always recording. Emotional regulation was another skill she'd mastered. She finished the executive lounge and took the service elevator to the third floor. Conference rooms A through F were arranged in a semicircle around a central collaboration space. She started with room A, where someone had apparently spent the entire day eating takeout and crumpling papers in frustration. She bagged the trash, noting the company name on the discarded pitch materials, Neuralink Solutions, a startup trying to crack direct brain-to-cloud interfaces. She'd been tracking them for 6 months. In room B, she found a jacket draped over a chair. She hung it up properly, checking the pockets out of habit, empty except for a business card. Sarah Chen, Venture Capital Associate, Mendel Partners. She'd met Sarah 3 times, always at 2 a.m. when the woman was working through panic attacks about missing the next big investment. Sarah never remembered her face. Room C still had that tablet on the table. Maya worked around it again, but this time she noticed the battery was at 2%. She looked at it for a long moment, then made a decision. She picked it up carefully, carried it to the charging station built into the wall, and plugged it in. Whoever had left it would thank themselves in the morning. She was wiping down the last smart glass panel when movement in the collaboration space caught her attention. Daniel Park had returned, this time with a laptop and a coffee that smelled strong enough to strip paint. He sat up at one of the high-top tables, not noticing her in the dimmed conference room. Maya watched him through the glass. He opened his laptop, stared at the screen, then dropped his head into his hands. His shoulders moved like he was laughing or crying. From this distance, it was hard to tell. She finished room C and moved to room D, which put her closer to the collaboration space. Through the open door, she could hear him muttering to himself, "Okay. Okay. You can do this. It's just numbers. Just data. Just your entire career and the next 5 years of your life depending on whether you can convince a room full of sharks that synthetic biology is worth their money." He laughed again, definitely not a happy sound. "No pressure." Maya paused, her hand on the spray bottle. This wasn't her business. This wasn't her world. She was the janitor. She was invisible. She was supposed to stay invisible, but she'd heard that exact desperation before, in a dozen different voices, in 100 different conversations she wasn't supposed to hear. She recognized the sound of someone standing on the edge. She finished room D and moved to room E, which shared a wall with the collaboration space. She could hear him more clearly now. "The science is solid. The team is solid. The market research is solid. So why does every word of this pitch sound like absolute bullshit? A pause. Because you're bullshitting, Park. Because you don't believe it yourself. Maya set down her cleaning supplies and walked into the collaboration space. Daniel looked up, startled, as if he'd forgotten other humans existed. Sorry, she said. I'm not trying to eavesdrop. But you sound like you're having a crisis, and this building has excellent acoustics. He stared at her for a moment, then laughed for real this time. Is it that obvious? Only to anyone with ears. She gestured to the coffee station. Can I make you a fresh cup? That one smells like it died an hour ago. You know how to use that thing? He nodded to the industrial espresso machine. I clean it every night. You pick things up, then yes, please. I'll take anything that might help me finish this pitch without wanting to throw myself off the roof. She moved to the coffee bar and started the machine, her hands moving through the ritual she'd watched 1,000 times. The grinder, the tamp, the pressure, the extraction. The machine hummed and hissed, filling the space with the rich smell of coffee that cost more per pound than her monthly pod rent. Synthetic biology, she said while the shop pulled. That's the company trying to grow meat from stem cells without the traditional cellular scaffolding. Right? Daniel's head snapped up. How did you? I clean conference rooms for 12 hours a day. You hear things. She pulled the shot, added steamed milk with a precision that would make a barista weep, and handed him the cup. The pitch isn't the problem. The science is the problem. The science is solid, the science is expensive. She leaned against the counter. You're trying to convince investors to fund 6 more months of RD when your current projections show you need at least 18 months to get to market. That's what's making you sound like bullshit. You're asking for half of what you actually need because you're afraid of looking too ambitious. Daniel set down the cup without drinking. His eyes locked on her face. Who are you? I'm Maya. I clean things, no. He stood up, walking toward her. No, you're not just someone who cleans things. That analysis is better than what my $500 an hour consultant gave me. Who are you really? Maya felt her heart rate spike, her neural implant helpfully displaying her elevated pulse in the corner of her vision. She'd been careless. Stupid. 3 years of discipline, and she'd broken character because a man with nice eyes looked sad. I'm someone who listens, she said carefully. And who has watched a lot of very smart people make very predictable mistakes. Like what? Like undervaluing their own work because they're afraid of rejection. Like cutting projections to make them palatable instead of realistic. Like forgetting that the best investors don't want safe bets, they want paradigm shifts. Daniel was standing very close now, close enough that she could see the flecks of amber in his dark eyes, close enough to smell the coffee on his breath mixing with that expensive cologne. Say I believe you. Say you're right. What do I do? Tell the truth. Ask for 18 months. Show them the real timeline. And stop pitching synthetic biology as better meat. Pitch it as the end of factory farming, the solution to climate change, the technology that turns deserts into protein production facilities. Make them see the world that exists if you succeed, not just the product you're selling. He stared at her for a long moment. Then he laughed, running a hand through his already disheveled hair. That's either the worst advice I've ever gotten or the best, usually both. She picked up her cleaning supplies. I should finish my work, wait. He grabbed his laptop, opening a document. Can you look at this? Just for a second. Tell me if I'm completely off base. I'm really not, please. You're the first person in 3 months who's told me something that actually made sense. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. Maya looked at him, at the desperation and hope warring in his expression. And made another decision she'd probably regret. 5 minutes, she read his pitch deck while he hovered beside her, nervous as a student waiting for a grade. It was good, professionally designed, data-rich, well-structured. It was also completely bloodless. Every slide was about metrics and projections and market penetration. Nothing about why it mattered. Page 7, she said. You have a slide about cost efficiency compared to traditional meat production, right? That's our key competitive advantage. Delete it, replace it with stories. Show me the farmer in Kansas who can't sell his land because it's been depleted by industrial agriculture. Show me the single mother in Jakarta who can't afford protein for her kids. Show me the climate scientist who knows we have 10 years to fix carbon emissions from livestock. Make me feel why this matters, not just understand why it's profitable. Daniel was typing notes furiously, his previous exhaustion replaced with manic energy. What else? Your team slide. It's all credentials and previous exits. Add one sentence about why each person joined. What made them believe, okay. Okay, yes. More typing. What about the financial projections? Change the header from conservative estimates to realistic timeline. Own the ambition. Show 3 scenarios: realistic, accelerated, and breakthrough. Let them choose which one they want to fund. He stopped typing and looked at her. You're wasted as a janitor, Maya smiled, collecting her supplies. Maybe I like cleaning things. Nobody likes cleaning things that much. You'd be surprised what you learn when people think you're not listening. She walked away, back to conference roomy, but she could feel his eyes following her. Her neural implant was screaming warnings about her elevated heart rate, her flushed skin temperature, her dilated pupils. All the biological markers of attraction that her body insisted on displaying despite her better judgment. She finished rooms E and F in record time, hyper-aware of Daniel's presence in the collaboration space. He was rebuilding his pitch deck, occasionally muttering to himself. Twice he looked up like he wanted to ask her something else, but she kept moving, kept working, kept playing her role. At 11:30, she finished her shift and headed to the employee locker room. She changed back into street clothes, trying to convince herself that the flutter in her stomach was just low blood sugar and not something stupidly dangerous like hope. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number: "Thank you for the coffee advice. And the life advice. And for reminding me why I started this company. If you ever want to hear how the pitch goes, I'm usually here around 10 p.m. having existential crises." Daniel, Maya stared at the message. She should delete it. She should block the number. She should maintain the careful boundaries that had kept her secret safe for 3 years. Instead, she typed, "I'll be cleaning the 4th floor tomorrow night. Executive offices. Try not to have your crisis too loudly, the acoustics are even better up there." She sent it before she could change her mind, then immediately wanted to throw her phone off the building. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of cleaning shifts and family group chats that grew increasingly frantic as the gala approached. Isabella posted daily updates about her dress, her makeup artist, her professional photographer. David shared pictures of his new luxury sedan, a model that cost more than Maya earned in 5 years. Marcus kept sending her private messages asking for advice that always seemed to circle back to networking opportunities with her wealthy clients. And Daniel started appearing at the building every night, not in the spaces she was cleaning, he was too smart for that. But always somewhere nearby. The collaboration space on the 3rd floor when she worked the conference rooms. The meditation pods when she cleaned the executive lounge. The 4th floor coffee bar when she worked the private offices. They developed a routine. She'd work, he'd pretend to work, and eventually they'd end up talking. About his company, his pitch, his fears. About synthetic biology and climate change and the ethical implications of programming life itself. He never asked about her personal life, and she was grateful. It made it easier to maintain the lie. "You're going to crush this pitch," she told him one night, 3 days before the gala. They were in the 4th floor break room at 1 a.m., sharing overpriced chocolate from the executive snack bar that she'd technically stolen but he'd insisted on paying for by leaving twice its value in cash. "How can you be so sure?" He was sitting on the counter, legs dangling like a kid, close enough that their knees occasionally brushed. "Because you stopped trying to sell meat and started trying to save the world. Investors can smell the difference. Is that more of your observing very smart people make mistakes wisdom?" "Something like that, you know what I think?" He leaned forward, and suddenly they were very close. "I think you're one of those very smart people." I think you've got your own story about why you're here, cleaning offices at 1 a.m., dispensing $1 million advice for minimum wage. Maya's pulse spiked. Maybe I just like helping people. Maybe. Or maybe you're hiding from something. Or someone. His voice was soft, not accusatory. It's okay. I'm not asking you to explain. I just want you to know that I see you. Not the uniform. She should leave. She should make up an excuse about needing to finish her rounds. She should remember that this was exactly the kind of complication she'd spent 3 years avoiding. Instead, she said, I have a family event this weekend. Big gala thing. I'm not looking forward to it. Why not? Because my family thinks I'm a failure. Because they look at this uniform and see wasted potential. Because I've spent years letting them believe I'm something I'm not, and I don't know how to tell them the truth without it destroying everything. Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Want me to come with you? Maya laughed. What, to your gala? As your date? Or your friend? Or your moral support? Whatever you need. You don't even know me. I know you're brilliant. I know you're kind. I know you make the best espresso I've ever had, and you understand synthetic biology better than most people with doctorates. I know that you're brave enough to live your life on your own terms, even when it costs you. He shrugged. Seems like I know the important things. Maya felt something crack open in her chest, some protective barrier she'd built so carefully. You're serious, completely. Plus, I clean up okay. I've got a suit and everything. She should say no. She should keep her world separate. She should protect her secret and her carefully constructed double life. Okay, she heard herself say. But fair warning, my family is going to assume you're there because you pity me. They're going to be condescending and judgmental and probably try to set me up with my cousin's friend who works in middle management. I've faced rooms full of venture capitalists who want to watch me fail. I think I can handle your family. He grinned. Besides, now I'm curious. What kind of people make someone like you feel like a failure? The worst kind, Maya said. The kind who love you. She gave him the details, time, place, dress code, and watched the information appear in his calendar by a shared link. Then she finished her shift and went home to her efficiency pod, where she couldn't sleep because her mind kept replaying the conversation, the moment, the feeling of being seen. On the morning of the gala, Isabella posted a final selfie caption, Time to shine. David shared a picture of his new watch, price tag visible. Marcus sent Maya one last message, big announcement tonight. You'll want to be there early. Maya stared at her closet, at the dress she'd had custom made 6 months ago from a designer whose work cost more than her family knew she could afford. It was perfect, elegant, understated. Expensive enough to make a statement without screaming for attention. She'd bought it for this exact moment, though she hadn't known what form the moment would take. Now she did. She dressed carefully, letting her neural implants AR overlay guide her through the makeup tutorial she'd bookmarked. She styled her hair into something between polished and effortless. She looked at herself in her pod's tiny mirror and saw someone who existed in the space between two worlds, not quite belonging to either. Her phone buzzed. Daniel, ready when you are. I've got a car outside your building. No judgment about the efficiency pod, by the way. I lived in one for 2 years after my first startup failed. Maya smiled, something warm and dangerous blooming in her chest. She grabbed her clutch, the one with the checks inside, the ones she'd written to her family members, the ones that would change everything, and walked out to meet whatever came next.